He was a kind-hearted man, but not very intelligent. Therefore, he was always on the lookout for smart and discerning people to improve his kingdom and help it prosper and subjugate its enemies. Even the king's existing subjects didn't seem to be of much use to him. They merely offered advice and collected salaries in return, but their advice lacked the impact the king desired. This thought often troubled him. One day, to resolve this dilemma, the king decided to take a trip to the forest with his courtiers. Perhaps nature would lead him to some answers. The king reached the forest and, after much enjoyment and recreation, began his journey back. On the way, he came across a strange sight. A man was sitting under a large tree, talking to himself, appearing crazy and strange from a distance. Seeing this, the king paused. The thought crossed his mind. Either this man was mad or the master of an extraordinary world. Lost in his own world. Intrigued, the king, in the presence of his courtiers, approached the man and began a conversation. The man appeared to be half mad, but his words had a strange charm. The king gently asked, "Young man, are you mad to be talking to yourself? This madman will save the king's entire kingdom. No one could have imagined this." So the madman smiled and replied, "You are mad, and so are your subjects. I am perfectly fine. I just want this forest cleared and magnificent palaces built here, and I myself will be the king of those palaces." There was a strange confidence and frankness in his words that seemed beyond the reach of an ordinary madman. The king and his courtiers were astonished by his response, for such words were only the work of a madman or someone possessed of valor and extraordinary wisdom. The king stared at him silently for a while. Then, when the courtiers discussed the man, their hidden greed immediately surfaced. They began to whisper among themselves. Some feared that if this man became the king's chief advisor, they would become his slaves, and their importance would diminish. A courtier said softly, "This is a danger. He might overpower us all." Another quickly added, "No, he's more than half mad. We shouldn't expect any intelligence from him, so tell the king to take him with him." The courtiers believed that this man could do no harm to them, but God had other plans. Finally, the courtiers advised the king to take him to the palace. If he turned out to be brave, he would be useful. If he really turned out to be insane, they would release him later. The king, following the courtier's advice, said Bismillah and, with some pressure, convinced the man to come with him. But on the way, the man suddenly turned his horse in a different direction and tried to run away. The king and his courtiers immediately set after him. With all their might, they brought him back under control and set off for the palace by the same route. As soon as they reached the palace, a huge crowd had gathered there. Everyone was shouting slogans and congratulating the king. The king and his courtiers were astonished to see this and asked what this congratulations was for. The people told them, "Your Majesty, on the route you took to get the lion, a huge enemy army was lying in wait, armed with powerful weapons. We were convinced you would never return." Hearing this, everyone's eyes displayed a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and worry. The people then exclaimed happily, "Your Majesty, you were very clever. You changed the route." The king silently looked at the madman and thought to himself, "This man is truly no ordinary man, but something special." Then, turning to his courtiers, he gave orders, "Hurry. Prepare a wonderful chair for this man. From today on, he will be with me." The courtiers, already terrified, immediately exclaimed, "Your Majesty, this man is insane. He might harm you. Wise men like us should be with you, But the king dismissed his words seriously and said, "No, this man is wiser than all of you. He silently saved us from a dangerous enemy. This is the mark of wise men. If it weren't for him, none of you would have known that the enemy was lurking on the way. Our safety is due to his intelligence." Hearing this, the madman smiled and proudly sat down on the chair at the king's feet. But this moment sparked a new tension in the palace. The courtiers, who had occupied those chairs for centuries, generations after generations, could never tolerate a stranger, and a man known as Mad sitting next to them. He began to feel jealous in his heart, and a web of conspiracies began to form against him. But no power in the world can bring down the one whom Allah bestows with honor. The power of honor and disgrace rests solely in his hands. Hearing this story will strengthen your faith in Allah's power. Allah can demote a king and turn him into a beggar, and can elevate a madman to a king. And when he wishes to elevate someone, all the world's conspiracies fail. How do the courtiers' conspiracies, their jealousy, and opposition bring honor to that madman? Let's find out. One morning, when the palace was in session, a few members of the public stepped forward and approached the man whom everyone called Mad. They politely said, "Brother, peace be upon you. We need to ask you a few questions. We want to talk to you completely." The subjects continued, "Brother, you have no idea about our king's principles and courtly etiquette. We just want you to avoid taking any misunderstanding that could result in punishment." The madman, surprised, said, "What do you mean? I'll be punished. I never asked to be brought to the palace. What kind of trouble is this? Take me back." Hearing this, a slight wave of joy crossed the subjects' faces. They felt their plan was succeeding. But because of their fear of the king, they couldn't scare him out of the palace. Instead, trying to persuade him gently, they said, "Brother, you have no idea what you could gain if you obey us." The madman, already terrified by the word punishment, immediately panicked and said, "Okay, tell me what to do." Seeing the opportunity, a scribe who was himself a close associate of the king, and whose seat was now occupied by the madman, stepped forward and told the courtier that it is customary in our court that the court begins only when someone slaps the king or performs an act that awakens the court. The madman, who was completely brainless, immediately retorted, "Oh, it's no big deal. I slapped the king. I can even kick him." The subjects, suppressing their laughter at his foolishness, applauded him and cheered him on. When the king sits on his chair, you go and slap him hard on the neck. Then you will see that the king will be so pleased that he will bestow numerous honors upon you. The madman mistakenly agreed. The next day, when the court was held and the king was seated on his throne, the madman stepped forward with utmost simplicity and slapped the king hard on the neck. The force of the blow sent the king's crown flying away. But as soon as it hit the ground, a dangerous scorpion emerged from beneath it. The king immediately stood up in shock. And it didn't take him long to realize that if he had placed the crown on his head, the scorpion would have stung him. With a heart full of gratitude, the king embraced the madman. Embracing him happily, the king said, "My dear, this is the only person who truly loves me. If he hadn't slapped me, today might have been my last day." By the king's orders, a lavish feast was arranged for the madman, and he was also given a beautiful palace as his own. The subjects, already jealous of him, became even more distraught. Fear gripped their hearts. If this continued, this madman would inherit all their thrones. So they began to gossip among themselves. "This guy is rising too fast. Something has to be done. Otherwise, all our respect and status will be lost. Meanwhile, the half-madman was thinking to himself, these subjects are truly genuine and compassionate people. Look at the wonderful advice they gave. Happily, he resolved in his heart that from now on, he would accept whatever they said. The next day, after consulting again, the subjects arrived at the madman's palace. They were all seething with anger inside, but their faces were plastered with smiles. One of the advisors began speaking gently. "Brother, how did you like yesterday's trick? If you hadn't slapped him, the king would have suspected you, and you might have been punished." The madman, now living comfortably in his palace, smiled and said, "Yes, of course. You people are very nice. Your trick changed my fate." The subject seized the opportunity and laid another trap. But it is true that whoever Allah protects can be harmed. Anyone can plot against you as much as they want. But if you are truthful and Allah is with you, no one can harm you. The subjects addressed the madman and said, "Now listen to one more thing. In the morning, when the court is held and the king is about to sit on his throne, you must immediately pull his chair back. You will receive half the kingdom. This task is not easy, but you will be brave and take it." The madman quickly replied, "What about one? I can even pull 2 chairs." The subjects, as usual, praised him and left. And in the morning, in the court, what they had asked the madman to do happened. As soon as the king was about to sit on the throne, the madman saw the opportunity and pulled his chair back. But the king, controlling himself, stood up before falling. When he looked back, he was astonished to see that one of the chair's legs had already broken from the inside. The king immediately looked at the madman, embraced him, and said in a loud voice to everyone, "Look how clever and loyal this man is. If it weren't for him, I would have fallen to the ground along with the chair and been injured." Then he awarded him the Medal of Imshis and appointed him general of his army. And his bravery was once again praised in the court. Seeing this, the subjects held their heads in bewilderment. Each time the man who tried to topple him, his honor only grew. Now, fed up, they started saying to each other, "What a trouble this is. We want him punished, the king to be angry, and he hanged, but he always wins." Seeing the situation slipping out of hand, the advisors hatched a cunning plan. A plan that could shake the entire kingdom. They all decided together that they would secretly contact the neighboring king, provoke him to war, and promise to attack him. But the king was assured that the people were with him. "We would handle everything. All you have to do is kill our general. Leave everything else to us." The people sent this conspiracy letter, and after investigating the other kingdoms, they agreed. Now only one thing remained: to persuade their king to go to war. So, the people injured some of their men, and the king he came before the king and said, "Your Majesty, how long can we wait? If something happens to you tomorrow, the entire kingdom will cry. The enemy attack is imminent. We must decide now." In short, the king sounded the war drum and sent his army, along with his subjects, to battle. Now, the commander of the army, Salah, is mad. But even everyone together can do nothing to the madman. Only the backs were laughing behind him. When they reached the enemy border, the army was fully prepared. When the soldiers from both sides entered the forest, the madman ordered everyone to stop. "I will fight the king first, because he was the commander." The entire army stopped. The madman called out loudly, "O king, come out." The enemy king came, and the two stood face to face in the middle of the forest. Suddenly, a ferocious lion emerged from the bushes and attacked the enemy king. The madman, who really only wanted to wield his sword and harbored no personal animosity, immediately charged forward and engaged the lion. After a fierce battle, he killed the lion and brought back the wounded king. The enemy king was covered in blood, but survived. Looking at his army, the king said, "No, there will be no fight. I forgive that commander. He saved my life. He is a very brave and intelligent man. We don't want war. Arrest and imprison the subjects who came with him." Hearing this, the madman immediately drew his sword and roared, "Beware of touching any of the advisors." Seeing his loyalty, the king said to himself, "What a wonderful man he is. He saves his enemies and forgets himself." Now the madman became the talk of the kingdom. His bravery and truthfulness won everyone's hearts. The king even gave him his daughter in marriage. The subjects, already seething with anger, remained silent at this sight, but revenge for the humiliation became their goal at every step. Now the two kingdoms began to unite. Their enmity turned into friendship, but the subjects decided to create another trap. They started saying to each other, "If we don't stop this madman, tomorrow we will all become his slaves. We must eliminate him." Everyone unanimously agreed, but among them was an old advisor, experienced and soft-hearted. He made a remarkable statement. He stood up and spoke with utmost seriousness. "Friends, listen to me carefully. God has bestowed a special status, position, and quality on every person in the world. And remember, no power in the world can take away the honor that Allah bestows upon him. Even if you kill him, remember that his honor will increase even more. And if you think that his death will restore your lost position, you are mistaken. One day the truth will be revealed, and you will all meet your end. Therefore, submit to Allah's will. This is what is best for us." He took a breath and then said softly, "All of you should understand just one thing. He is apparently insane, but Allah has blessed him with a unique quality. Even if fate turns against him, he will prevail alone. So, instead of engaging with him, embrace the truth yourselves." The entire nation repented of its jealousy, and after some time, the madman passed away, and the people regained their status. So friends, this story may seem like a funny tale, but it hides a true truth that we must accept. Truth, fate, and the grace of Allah. We should never envy anyone. Because if someone achieves a position or status and is successful, it may be due to their hard work. They may have good luck, or they may possess qualities that have led Allah to bestow that honor. Try to adopt those qualities, work hard, and be truthful. Perhaps you too will receive the same respect, but don't envy. History bears witness to the fact that hypocrites and envious people never succeed. The field always belongs to the truthful. I hope you learned a lot from this story. Our channel has excellent and instructive stories. If you like them, be sure to watch them. If you enjoyed this story, please like it. Please share your thoughts in the comments. And for more such interesting, insightful stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell. Thank you for your support.